Hi, Peter Charles here of Hooked for Life Fly Fishing, and today we're going to weld our first simple loop. And this is typically the loop that you would have at the front of a fly line. So for example, if the fly line that you purchased came with a loop but it cracked and you cut it off, you could re-weld a new loop using this technique. So let's get started having a look at what I'm using. Here's my material that I'm going to be welding. It's pretty well as thick as it's going to get for a tip weld. You usually are not working with anything thicker than that. If you were working with material thicker than this, I'll look at the more of a built-up loop, which I'll be showing you in another video. I've got 1/8 inside diameter polyolefin 2:1 heat shrink, and it's clear. And my first step is I'm going to cut off a little over 3 inches, because our weld is going to be about 2 inches long or a little bit less. So you just want a little bit longer heat shrink in order to get have some room on either end to hold it so you're not burning your fingers. Next thing I'm going to do is bevel the end of the fly line. It gives us a bit of a ramp. So I'm just going to cut that off. And you can see I've now got a bit of a ramp here, and that helps smooth the transition from the tag end of the loop into the main line. Now what we do here is we take our heat shrink and I feed my line into the heat shrink all the way through, and I take about a little over 2 inches and I feed it back. And you can see I'm at this stage here. Now I pull. Now the tag is not going to move. I'm pulling the loop inside of the heat shrink. And so now this spot here is what we're going to weld, and that's a little over 1.5 inches long. So I'll just show you what that looks like. You can see how I've got my taper there and right to here. So that's what we're going to be welding. So let's turn on my heat gun. The low fan setting is usually good enough. My first step is just to snug down the heat shrink. And I'm only snugging down the bit that's actually going to be welded. I don't go beyond that. So you can see here at the end where the tag ends, I don't weld or heat past that point. If you heat too far into the main line, so if you start heating back into here, what happens is you end up with creating a weak spot in the main line, which we don't want to have happen. Okay, now I've got everything lined up. You can see that everything is parallel. I don't want any twists in it. And let's get going with the weld. And we start with the tag end. And I point the tag end towards the heat. And then I just turn, and I'm watching for when it looks like moving from 2 lines into 1 line. Right there. Now I move on to the next bit. And now the last piece. And if you can take a quick look, and if you think it needs any more welding, yeah, just a little bit near the tag. A little bit there. There. Now we have our weld. We're ready to take off a heat shrink. Normally I let this cool, so I don't disturb the weld when I'm pulling off the heat shrink. So let's give this a couple of minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, now we're ready to take off the heat shrink, and sometimes it comes off nice and cleanly and sometimes it's a fiddle. So, you know, I've never been able to find a reason why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So if I'd found a reason, I would be telling you. So I take my scissors and carefully, that's why we use our pointy scissors, to snip away the unshrunk part, and then I try to peel off, and look at that, it's coming off nicely this time. Oops, spoke too fast. There we go. So this is what you're left with. This is garbage. And now we have our lovely welded loop. Yeah, looks just like a factory loop, doesn't it? And you can see how our tag end is blended in nicely. It won't lift up, it won't catch on anything. So when you're pulling it through the guide, you don't have a lump there that will catch. So now you've got a finished loop. You're ready to go fishing with it. So as I say, if you were to damage the loop on your existing fly line, here's how you can make a new one. Very, very simple. It's just a matter of using, this heat gun, that 1/8 inch polyolefin 2-to-1 clear heat shrink, and just weld a nozzle width at a time. Watch it when it goes from being 2 distinct lines into one. Move on to the next section. And you can always go back if it's not quite welded enough, like I did. The tag didn't look quite all the way welded, so I gave it another shot of heat. And you can see how the concentrator made it very easy for me to aim at a particular point. I could pick one spot, just weld that bit, and move on. If you don't have that concentrator nozzle, it just blasts heat everywhere, and it's totally out of control. And getting a good weld is strictly hit and miss at that stage. But there you go. Perfectly functional weld. That thing is strong. I'm going to use this. This is going to be my pull test strip that I'll show you in another video. I'll put another weld at the other end, and I'll show you exactly how strong this is. We'll put it up with a fish scale, and we'll really reef on it and see if I can actually break it. The truth is known, I might not be able to break it. The fish scale will show you exactly how much pressure we can put on. So anyway, there's your first simple loop. Very easy to do, very quick to do, and it will hold. Great way to repair a line when you've broken off a loop, or if you bought a budget line and you want to add a loop to it. Cheers.
Fish. This one.